Overall crime at Destiny USA has dropped dramatically over the past 5 years, but recent numbers suggest the number of crimes is slowly increasing once again. We've been digging into those numbers after a 14-year-old shot at a trash can at the mall about a month ago. It's the 5th shots fired call in the last 4 years here. The police chief says there are new ideas about safety on the table and believes overall the data shows that recent plans have worked to keep people safe at the mall. CBS 5's Connor White is on your side tonight.
A gunshot sent crowds out the door of Destiny USA just shy of a month ago and brought Syracuse Police and mall owners back to the table to talk security.
We're looking into some enhancements that have to do with both technology and personnel.
Syracuse Police Chief Joseph Cecile says he's spoken with owner Stephen Conjal as recently as Tuesday. He says more Syracuse Police are not part of current plans. Instead, the mall is looking into increasing county probation officers on patrol. They also want to increase the number of neighbors on a violence intervention task force that has been active at the mall for the past 3 years.
They have, in many cases, a greater impact than a uniformed officer.
The chief says that none of this is set in stone, but is pointing to numbers over the past 5 years, suggesting past and present security protocols have already had a positive impact.
Many of the things they're doing out there are working.
Syracuse Police say they responded to a total of 613 crimes in 2017, which then steadily declined to 350 in 2021. But then we see a slight uptick, going up to 365 crimes in 2022. This includes all crimes, like shoplifting. In terms of violent crimes, like a shots fired, the number of crimes have decreased or remained at a steady low number.
Any rise is a concern for us. But we have to look into why that has gone up.
Numbers that SPD provided show that total crimes went up in February of 2023 compared to the past 2 years, but have since said these figures could be inaccurate due to recently found reports that need to be submitted. As for improvements at the mall, the county confirmed plans to increase probation officers but couldn't provide a figure on Wednesday. Timothy Jennings-Bay, who runs the violence interruption team, says he hasn't heard from mall ownership about altering their numbers.
The town of Manlius has someone new in charge of the police department tonight. The board moved quickly to name an interim police chief, and tonight we know more about why the former chief suddenly left the job last week. CBS 5's Morgan Scott is in with the very latest right now. Morgan.
Michael, the town of Manlius has had a tough past week after terroristic threats were recently made to a local Tops supermarket. And now town officials say they are moving forward by redefining the role of their police chief. For the town of Manlius, there's a new interim police chief in town.
As an interim police chief, I want to be able to ensure that the quality of service that the Town of Manlius Police Department is known for continues. And I can help the town board in their tasking of finding their new leader in the future.
Jason Cecile served 20 years with the Manlius Police Department and was most recently the undersheriff of Onondaga County until last year.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the interim police chief agreement.
Cecile's new role as interim police chief comes only a week after the very sudden resignation of former police chief Michael Crowell, a decision Manlius neighbors say they still feel left in the dark about.
As taxpaying members of the community have a right to know about the decisions being made by those in positions of power.
Transparency should work in both directions. It should not be clear in one direction and obscured in the other.
According to the separation agreement between the town and former police chief Crowell, there was an investigation late last year into the former chief's conduct and performance. That led the board to issue new working terms for the chief to operate under. Town leaders say he would not agree to it.
As a leading agency, it's important that we self-assess as often as possible, and really, ask ourselves, are we doing the best job we can? It's a long-term process.
Moving forward, Town Supervisor John Deere says he wants the Manlius Police Department to be more open with the community.
Looking towards, communication with the community, making sure that the community has a voice in how policing happens. That's one of the biggest things we saw, kind of through the studies we've done.
Now it's a 3-month agreement moving forward with Manlius Chief Jason Cecile. His salary will be based on $135,000 a year. That's the same amount of money the town is shelling out in a lump sum payout to the former chief for him to leave.
Yeast infection that can cause severe and even deadly infections is on the rise across the country. New York State is seeing some of the highest case counts.
But what is it, and do we need to be worried? Our Maggie DeRosa spoke to local experts about Candida auris.
Doctors are concerned over a rapid increase in cases year over year of Candida auris. And now the CDC is sounding the alarm to the highly fatal and drug-resistant fungus.
It can be highly fatal. Anywhere from 30 to 60% of people who get severe infections can die.
The numbers are, essentially doubling every year, the number of cases. So it is a concern.
The fungus is easily misidentified and can cause bloodstream, wound, and ear infections. Although a CDC map shows high case numbers in New York, Dr. Thomas says upstate hasn't seen an infection, but that doesn't minimize his concerns. He says it's not an if, but a when.
It is just a matter of time before we have someone who is sick with this fungus.
Those at greatest risk are immunocompromised, people who spend lengths of time in the hospital, and nursing home residents. That's where it is spreading rapidly.
It can get on surfaces, it can get on equipment, it could get on things like blood pressure cuffs or things of that nature. And so it can be passed pretty rapidly.
You can also carry the fungus without displaying symptoms and spread it.
Sick people are at increased risk for getting infections with opportunistic pathogens like Candida auris.
Dr. Thomas says overusing antibiotics has helped resistant bacteria prosper. He says there are ways to stay safe.
Don't use antibiotics when they don't need them, and wash your hands as frequently as possible. Those are the things that people can do. And if you're in one of those high-risk groups that I mentioned and you get sick, see your doctor.
The county is on the lookout for the fungus and has communicated with hospitals to be on heightened alert.